I recently obtained the findings of a private investigation. This marks the fourth such investigation in as many years. Jason Thomas, a private investigator, conducted the inquiry over the past 4 years. I engaged the services of 4 different private firms, selecting cities at random and timing their use inconsistently. This approach was intended to catch my wife and her partner in a lie. However, this latest investigator, Mr. Thomas, has concluded that their actions were not deceitful. I recently spoke with Mr. Thomas. He informed me that his team and colleagues in Dallas had been monitoring my wife, Molly, and John Decker for a week. They observed them at their office during the first 4 days of the week. In Dallas, where they were both attending a work seminar for 3 days, my wife Molly was the administrative assistant to John Decker, the CEO of a subsidiary of a large international holding company. As an administrator and assistant, she usually traveled with him, and he traveled frequently. Mr. Thomas stated that he would send a written report, but in general, he noted that for 4 days before going to Dallas, they were followed and watched. They ate lunch together all 4 days and then went straight back to work. On the second day, the two of them went to a local bar after work. Each of them drank 2 glasses, and then each went to his. On the other 3 days, they both drove directly home from work, and their spouses were present when they arrived. The trip to Dallas was not particularly noteworthy. Each of the 3 days they attended the workshop, they dined together, and each evening they engaged in dancing. After approximately an hour of dancing and drinking, they returned to their hotel rooms and did not leave until the following morning. Their rooms were separated by 10 other rooms were available, and there was no connecting door between the rooms. The camera pointed down the hallway showed that each night neither of them left their room until the next morning. The only suspicious activity was their dancing. My agent described it as 2 people in love dancing. There was no inappropriate touching, but there was definitely intimacy, and he usually hugged her all the way to their table. They were followed to the airport, and the agent verified that they boarded and that the plane actually flew home. For private investigator reports on random dates over the past 4 years found basically the same information. Both Molly and I are 36 years of age and have been married for 15 years. We were in an exclusive relationship for the final 3 years of our college education and subsequently married shortly after graduation. While Molly is not conventionally attractive, she could be considered to possess a distinctive and appealing physical appearance, including a notably attractive figure. She is notably outgoing and possesses a charismatic personality. Her colleague, John Decker, is approximately the same height as she is, at 6 feet 1 inch and 190 pounds. However, if it were between the two of them, it is likely that John would receive the majority of the female attention. He is a very attractive man. I have discussed this apparent closeness on numerous occasions with Molly. Initially, she stated that there was nothing between them. The only exception was work. She promised that she would never engage in any form of sexual activity with John Decker without my knowledge. She even offered to take a polygraph test at any time I requested. She asserted that they were merely colleagues and close friends. During our most recent discussion on the matter, she referred to him as a special friend. I believe he received a promotion. Molly and I went out to dinner and dancing with John and his wife, Gail, occurred on numerous occasions. John and Molly converse with each other and dance with each other at a much higher frequency than they do with their spouses. On one occasion, as John and Molly proceeded to the dance floor, I observed Gail raise her eyebrow in a manner suggestive of questioning what was occurring. I believe she is also aware of the closeness between them. I discussed the possibility of another position with Molly, motivated by a desire for reassurance. I am prone to jealousy, and her proximity to JN has led me to question their relationship. Molly dismisses my concerns, emphasizing her satisfaction with her current role and reiterating her commitment to transparency. She has even proposed taking a polygraph test for 4 years, a suggestion that I found costly. I conducted an investigation with the assistance of private detectives but was unable to ascertain any information. When I approached Molly at the kitchen table, she was in a more serious mood than usual. She requested a private conversation, which I agreed to. She informed me that John and Gail had extended an invitation for us to visit their lake house over the weekend. I informed her that I was not certain whether I would be able to attend. I would be amenable to the suggestion, but I would first have to consult with you. I believe that would be beneficial. The first thing that came to my mind was that 5 days a week at work is not sufficient. Now, you are proposing that I spend my weekends with him as well. I attempted to identify a rationale for declining the invitation, but I was unable to do so. On Friday afternoon, Molly and I embarked on our journey to John and Gail's lake house. We had a map to guide us, but I attempted to ascertain her familiarity with the destination by inquiring whether she had previously visited. She asserted that she had not, yet I harbored some doubt about her sincerity. After traversing approximately 50 meters, we finally reached our destination at approximately 4. It took some time to locate the residence, but upon arrival, we discovered 4 individuals awaiting our arrival on the porch. The only individual I recognized was John. I presumed Gail was inside, along with the meeting committee. This committee consisted of a large, well-built man, a middle-aged woman who appeared to be his wife, and an extremely attractive woman in her 20s, perhaps slightly older. She had long red hair, and I would consider her aesthetically pleasing. Everyone except her was wearing shorts and t-shirts. She was attired in a minuscule bikini. We proceeded to the porch after introductions were made. Upon inquiring with John about Gail's whereabouts, he stated that she was not present but did not elaborate. I considered it peculiar that we had traveled to visit John and Gail, only to find Gail absent. This could be attributed to my long-standing curiosity about the nature of Molly and Jay's relationship. My intuitive faculties began to perceive a potential complication. Had JN been engaging in an intimate encounter with this attractive young woman? Had Gail become aware of this? What was Molly's awareness of this situation? Molly exhibited no surprise at seeing this young lady. We were shown to our room and proceeded to unpack the few items we had brought with us. We then joined the others in the spacious room. The building and interior were satisfactory. There were 5 bedrooms and as many bathrooms. A large man who introduced himself as Larry inquired if I would like a beer. I replied in the affirmative and he directed me to follow him into the kitchen. He appeared eager to engage me in a conversation. I engaged in conversation with him for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. He was a genial individual, but after a while, I was ready to join the others. It was peculiar, but when we returned to the spacious room, he loudly proclaimed, "We have returned." Molly and John were standing in the corner, and I could have sworn they were frightened. They were both flushed with excitement. They were facing each other, seemingly in retreat, and I was disinclined to approve of anything I had observed thus far. Gail was not present, and Larry appeared to desire my attention in the kitchen. Molly was in an embrace with John, who I presumed to be a young and attractive woman. I was compelled to inquire about the circumstances, so I proceeded to the kitchen and motioned for Molly to follow me. She must have discerned that I was at least perplexed and probably Molly was visibly distressed and inquired as to the possibility of a private location where she and I could converse. The request was met with minimal surprise. John then proceeded to direct us to a room that could be utilized for our purposes. Molly and I proceeded to enter the room and close the door behind us. "Molly, what is the nature of this situation?" Her demeanor suggested that she had finally confronted a significant issue. "There is a topic that she is reluctant to discuss. Tom, I have not been entirely forthcoming with you regarding the events of this past weekend. However, I would like to provide an explanation without interruption. Once I have finished, I will answer any questions you may have. I anticipate that you will have numerous inquiries. Gail opted not to attend this weekend. Gail, John, and I had numerous lunch meetings to plan this weekend. Once I have concluded, I believe you will comprehend why you were not invited to these meetings. This is primarily Gail's concept, with input from both JN and myself. JN has accepted a promotion that would require him to relocate to England. He and Gail will be moving in 2 weeks. He will be replaced by a woman from the Cleveland office. I am confident you will view John's departure and his replacement by a woman favorably. There are 2 matters I must discuss with you regarding John and me. First, as I have consistently stated, it is important to note that John and I never engaged in an affair. Furthermore, we have never been in a physical relationship. However, I must also inform you that I have developed romantic feelings for John. I want to be clear that I am not simply stating that I love John, I am saying that I am in love with JN. I have reached a point where I feel I cannot remain silent any longer. I am overcome with emotion and find myself jumping to my feet and screaming, "Ed, I can't believe it. You brought me to this idiot's house. To inform me of your intention to leave me for this individual, I am leaving the premises and you are at liberty to seek your own means of transportation home. It should be noted that we no longer have a residence. You are relocating to England with this person." I began to proceed towards the exit when Molly grasped my arm and shouted, "Please, Tom, that is not at all what I said. Please take a seat and allow me to conclude my remarks. I love you and I will not abandon you. You are my spouse, and I will remain with you. Until death do us part." I resumed my seat. I must reiterate that this concept was largely Gail's idea. Before I proceed to elucidate the rationale behind our gathering this weekend, I believe it is imperative to introduce the other individuals present and their respective roles. The affable gentleman you were conversing with in the kitchen is Larry, the head of security for our company. He is solely here to ensure the general satisfaction of all attendees. I interceded, "So he is here to keep me in line, right, Molly?" Molly did not respond, she merely continued introducing herself to other individuals. "Jackie is a pleasant young woman, and she is available to assist you if you desire her company. She is a kind-hearted individual and also a high-class escort. Janet is Larry's wife and is also an excellent cook." Suddenly, a light bulb went off in my head, and the rest of this charade became clear to me. I could see exactly what Molly, John, and Gail were planning. Molly was aware that JN would disappear from her life after this weekend. John and Molly will spend the weekend together as lovers after this. His wife Gail will embark on their journey to England on Sunday, following my observation of my wife engaging in sexual intercourse with another individual throughout the weekend. She and I will then proceed to hold hands, proceed to our vehicle, and ultimately live happily ever after. Is this woman insane? They brought Larry in to ensure that I did not kill John or merely accidentally. Jackie is here to offer herself to me. This is intended to provide John and Molly with a weekend of love and sex. Molly, I must respectfully disagree with this plan of action. Where is Gail? You have stated that this is all her idea. Where is she? She has decided that it would be better for her emotional well-being to be absent from this situation. In the event that she is not present, John has signed a post-nuptial agreement that stipulates that in the event of any future contact between him and I, he will receive nothing in the divorce settlement, while Gail will receive 100% of the assets. I have also signed a similar document for you both. The aforementioned documents commence when John and Gail leave for England, as they will be leaving for England at the same time as John and I. The two documents also stipulate that there will be no sexual or romantic contact between us between this Sunday evening and the day they leave for England. Tom, I will indeed be completely yours after this weekend, and I vow to spend the rest of my life making up for the pain I cause you. Why am I here when Gail isn't? You would never. I am willing to forego your company at John's lake house for the same reason you were not invited to the planning dinner. You would have simply rejected any proposal put forth. What if I were to decline this opportunity outright and request that you either accompany me on an immediate return home or remain here with Joan and bid us both a fond farewell? Tom, I implore you to reconsider. It is important to note that although you are my soulmate for life, I require this weekend with JN to achieve closure. Furthermore, Gail is awaiting your call, as she was the primary proponent of this plan. She will gladly explain everything to you. Her number is on the kitchen table. I ask you once more not to proceed with this course of action. If you do so, we will be forced to conclude our relationship. Molly approached me and kissed me passionately. She then kissed me on the lips and stated that everything would be fine and that I would see. I was not given an opportunity to respond to her objections. Molly then excused herself from the room and took John, who was waiting for her, by the hand, and they disappeared from sight. Larry maintained eye contact with me for the remainder of the evening and was consistently positioned between me and John. I seriously considered simply departing and filing for divorce. However, I was compelled to ascertain the implications and the extent of the situation. It is challenging to convey the intensity of my emotions in words. I was consumed by a profound sense of anger. I was driven to inflict severe physical harm upon the individual in question and my unfaithful spouse. Realizing that I was unable to cope with Larry's actions, I feigned acquiescence and bided my time until the weekend's conclusion. I sought out Jackie and informed her of the developments. Although the temptation was strong, I was not inclined to assist Molly in violating our wedding vows. She would have to do so on her own. I informed Jackie that, in my view, she was free to return home or, if she wished, to remain and observe the situation. The next time I saw the couple, they were dining together. Janet had apparently been informed of the seating arrangements. John was seated at the head of the table. Molly was seated next to Larry, with Jackie positioned next to me. When Janet was not serving, she sat across from her husband, Larry. I postulated that, by this point, my wife had become an adulteress, thereby making me a cuckold. I observed, likely at John's suggestion, that she did not wear wedding rings. The only action I took during the meal was to stare at her bare finger. The entire meal was centered around her bare finger. After dinner, Jackie put on a beautiful red bikini and went for a swim. I sat by the pool, contemplating the ethical implications of my decision not to engage in sexual intercourse with her. John and Molly then walked out, holding hands in their swimsuits. Larry sat down next to me and attempted to initiate a conversation. The atmosphere became quiet. It was evident that this entire performance had been premeditated. He observed my every movement and made it clear that I would face adverse consequences if I approached my unfaithful wife and her partner. Shortly after the group had gathered by the pool, Molly approached and sat next to me. She placed her head on my shoulder and said, "I love you, Tom. Everything will be fine. We will discuss this further when we return home." I considered this woman to be irrational. I promptly arose and departed, informing her in a voice audible to all, "I will not engage in further discussion with you." I spent the remainder of the evening avoiding interaction with everyone except Larry. He was consistently in my vicinity, never taking his eyes off me. I decided to contact Gail, in the hope that she might be able to provide some insight into the situation. She must have been waiting for my call and answered on the first ring. It seems likely that she added me to her caller ID. She inquired, in a sad voice, how things were going and whether I was still at the lake house. I asked her what had prompted her to come up with this disaster. She did not provide a clear answer. "The situation with you and John has negatively impacted my marriage to Molly. Tom, I will explain my perspective. I must admit that I considered my own marriage to John. However, I have not dwelled on your relationship with Molly. I believe that women are more capable of moving forward and forgiving infidelity than men. I am aware that JN holds a deep affection for Molly and endured 4 years of suffering because of her. She consistently declined to engage in sexual intercourse with him. She consistently asserted that she would not engage in an illicit sexual relationship with another individual while remaining in a committed relationship. I proposed a compromise, a weekend of sexual and romantic intimacy in exchange for permanent cessation of communication between the two parties. I was concerned about the potential consequences of such a scenario, given the distance between them. In the future, any such plan could potentially lead to the destruction of each of us. I did not invite you to plan dinners because you would have likely declined, and now I advise you to reconsider your decision. I ended the call abruptly upon entering our bedroom, where I discovered that the only luggage present belonged to me. The only remaining item in the room was my luggage. Molly's belongings had been relocated, effectively transforming our bedroom into a single-occupancy space. I was overcome with sadness, contemplating the reality that Molly and John had now assumed residence in the adjacent room. I found myself questioning how Molly could believe that, following this weekend's events, our relationship could be instantly restored to its previous state of intimacy and affection. I could only speculate that their 4-year emotional affair, while not sexual, had somehow imbued them with the expectation that the world would readily accommodate their needs and desires. The emotional affair, which had lasted for a year, had not involved sexual intercourse. As a result, the couple believed that they were entitled to special treatment and that their needs would be understood by others. I did not sleep and carefully observed and listened to everything that was happening around midnight. Jackie knocked on my door and came in to ask if I was okay. She also reminded me that she was still available if needed. I thanked her for the offer and said that my refusal was one of the hardest things I had ever done. However, I declined her offer. She said that she regretted my decision. I went out to the pool. The hot tub was separated from the pool by a 3-foot wall. A 3-foot stone wall separated the hot tub from the pool, so I found a lounge chair, dragged it over to the tub, and quietly settled down on it. My watchman was probably sleeping in his room next to the adulterer's bedroom, and he was not observing Obed nearby. I waited for an hour or so, then suddenly heard voices approaching the pool. I immediately recognized the voices of 2 lovers. The couple could not see me, but I was only 10 feet away, concealed behind a short stone wall. Molly said, "Oh, John, this is so wonderful. I have loved you for so long, and I can finally demonstrate how much I will miss you. However, we have 2 days to spend them in love and remember it for the rest of our lives. Let's get naked and engage in sexual intercourse in the pool. Remove your garments, and I shall procure us a couple of beverages." Molly arose and proceeded to the kitchen to retrieve beverages. I harbored animosity towards him and towards Molly for the profound sense of emptiness I experienced. At last, I awaited the moment when I had endured all day of humiliation at the hands of this individual and my wife, who was wholly unworthy of the name. John was unclothed and awaiting Molly when I approached him. From behind, I shouted at a volume sufficient for all occupants of the residence to hear. I then proceeded to address him as, "Hey, ____________, which had recently become my informal moniker for him. As a result of the intense frustration I had been harboring throughout the day, a surge of adrenaline coursed through my body, and I proceeded to kick him with the intention of inflicting significant damage to his genitals, thereby compromising his sexual experience with my wife. He bent forward, attempting to protect himself. I then proceeded to strike Larry with my leg, which caused him to fall backwards into the pool. I was aware that Larry would likely emerge from bed and pursue me, but I did not anticipate a physical confrontation. He could verbally reprimand me, but he would likely avoid any action that could result in assault charges. Moreover, the damage to his superior had already been done. Larry did not seek revenge for the fact that Molly came running to see John's condition but did not bother to check on me. This incident lingered in my mind. I had accomplished everything I had planned after the message from my wife, so there was nothing keeping me there anymore. I took my bag, got into the car, and drove home. However, before leaving, I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the kitchen counter. It is possible that Molly was aware that our family life was over. I spent the remainder of the weekend seated in my reclining chair at home, staring at the television. I was not particularly engaged with the content displayed on the screen. My mind was preoccupied with imagining I considered the possibility that my wife might be engaging in an intimate encounter with JN, given that I was aware of the layout of the lake house. I could envision them in separate rooms, embracing and kissing, with her in bed with him, engaging in a sexual act that should be reserved for me. I contemplated her reaction upon returning home and wondered if she would choose to resume our relationship. However, I am uncertain as to where else she could have gone on Sunday evening. A vehicle drew up and came to a halt in front of my residence. It was John and Molly. John alighted from the vehicle with the apparent intention of opening the door. It seems likely that he requested Molly to wait and allow him to come and open her door. This was clearly an attempt to humiliate me. It would appear that John forgot that the human body after an injury and a lengthy journey, he exhibited a pronounced stiffness. He winced as he exited his residence, grasping the vehicle with his hands to navigate around it. He eventually reached the door and attempted to open it for her, appearing somewhat awkward in his movements. He then assisted Molly in exiting the vehicle. Moreover, Molly assisted John in escorting her to the residence. I was gratified that my intervention at the lake house had apparently disrupted their sexual activity. This was intended to demonstrate that he was returning her to me. After she had the option of remaining with him or returning to me, they held each other in a manner suggestive of romantic attachment, seemingly indifferent to my concerns. The neighbors might assume that I have had sufficient rest. I opened the front door and took a step towards JN. "If you do not leave the premises within 5 seconds, I will do more than merely assault you." John hobbled hastily back to his vehicle and departed. I returned to the house and sat down in my deep chair. Molly did not even watch him drive away. She entered the residence through the front door, her demeanor insincere and her expression a facade. "I'm home, honey," she said. Her behavior seemed so incongruous and peculiar. She acted as if she had just returned from an evening out with friends. I chose to ignore her and continued watching television. She approached me and attempted to kiss me, but I pushed her away. I informed her that from this point forward, she would be residing in the guest bedroom. I will be consulting with a lawyer tomorrow and initiating the process of drafting divorce papers. It bears noting that the house in question was mine prior to our marriage, and your name is not on any relevant documents. Consequently, I advise you to consider your future living arrangements. You may commence packing your belongings, but I will not engage in further discussion with you. Henceforth, all further communication shall be conducted through legal counsel. You are at liberty to seek a replacement for your former partner. I resumed watching television. Molly's shoulders slumped, and it became evident to her that reconciliation was unfeasible. She wept bitterly as she ascended the stairs, having lost both her lover and her husband in a single weekend.